Black twins. Abandoned by mom. What they do as billionaires. Stuns the world. In the quiet back streets of Savannah, Georgia, the sun had barely risen above the rooftops when 23-year-old Tyrone Miller wiped the sweat off his brow. He was up early, as always, tying bundles of roofing shingles for the foreman at the construction site. His hands were rough, calloused from years of hard labor, but they moved with practiced ease. What he lacked in wealth, he made up for in determination. At the other end of town, where manicured lawns and iron gates painted a different reality, 20-year-old Alyssa Raymond was quietly slipping away from the breakfast table. Her parents, both busy professionals, her father a dental chain owner and her mother a board-certified OB/GYN, were too distracted with news headlines and investor calls to notice their daughter's growing distance. Alyssa had always been the golden girl, top of her class, graceful, obedient. But in her heart, she felt like a bird inside a crystal cage, watching the world, but never touching it. Their worlds collided by accident, literally. One rainy afternoon, Alyssa's sleek BMW had skidded on the wet road and nearly hit Tyrone, who was pushing a busted wheelbarrow across the street. After the near miss, instead of getting angry, Tyrone made a joke about how he'd always wanted to fly without a plane. Alyssa laughed for the first time in weeks. That encounter became the first of many. They started meeting secretly, first under the old pecan tree near the train tracks, later in a borrowed room at a local church that Tyrone helped maintain. Their connection was real, intense even, but carried the weight of 1,000 complications. He was from a single-parent household scraping by, and she was the daughter of a family who didn't tolerate mistakes, especially not with someone they deemed beneath them.
"I wish I could take you home,"
Alyssa whispered one night as she lay with her head on Tyrone's shoulder. "You already are my home," Tyrone replied, pressing his lips to her forehead. They were young, yes, but not careless. They had plans, real ones. Tyrone dreamed of getting his GED and starting his own roofing business. Alyssa talked about breaking away, using her scholarship to study psychology and open a center for underprivileged youth. They were building a life in their minds, brick by brick, but all of that came crashing down when the test turned positive. "I'm pregnant," Alyssa said, standing under the pecan tree with shaking hands. Tyrone didn't run. He didn't freeze. Instead, he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her like a shield. "Then we raise this baby together," he said firmly, but Alyssa's voice trembled.
"My parents will disown me, Tyrone."
"They won't understand. They'll
take the baby away."
"Then we leave," he replied, his jaw set. "We start somewhere new. I'll work day and night. I don't care what it takes." It was the first time she saw fear behind his eyes, but it wasn't fear of the baby. It was fear of losing her. 9 months passed. They relocated quietly to a smaller town in Florida, where no one knew their names. Tyrone picked up every job he could find, from mopping floors to lifting drywall. They found a room in a rundown boarding house. It was far from ideal, but it was theirs. On the night of labor, it rained heavily. The midwife who had agreed to help was late. Tyrone had to rush Alyssa to the nearest emergency clinic. Hours passed in agony and uncertainty, until finally, 2 cries pierced the stormy night. "Twin girls," the nurse announced, smiling.
"Healthy and strong."
Tyrone's hands trembled as he held them, Kennedy first, then Kendra. Their skin was soft, their eyes closed, their futures uncertain, but his heart was full.
"They're perfect,"
he whispered. Alyssa, pale and exhausted, barely looked at the babies. She turned her face to the wall, said nothing, and fell asleep. The next morning, Tyrone woke to silence. The crib was there. The babies were there. Alyssa was gone. He checked the hallway, the bathroom, the parking lot. Nothing. No note, no goodbye, just a folded hospital gown and her engagement ring, cheap but meaningful, placed on the nightstand. It didn't make sense. Nothing did. He sat on the edge of the hospital bed, one baby in his arms, the other tied to his chest. The nurse asked if she should call someone, but Tyrone waved her away, tears streaming down his face. "No, I got this," he said softly. "They need me now. I got no room for falling apart." Back in Savannah, his mother, Gloria Miller, known as Miss Glow to the neighborhood, welcomed him and the twins with open arms. A retired teacher with a heart condition, she could only offer love and what little pension she had. Days turned into weeks. Nights were restless. Tyrone learned how to feed, burp, change, rock, and soothe two babies on his own. He pawned his phone to buy formula, skipped meals to afford diapers, and begged for work from anyone who'd listen. Once, when he was down to his last $5, he split it between gas for his cousin's borrowed car and a small pack of wipes. He skipped eating that day, but sang lullabies to Kennedy and Kendra like nothing was wrong. When the neighbors found out Alyssa had left, the whispers began. "She ran because she never loved him. She's back with her people. Bet she doesn't even care. She'll be back when she sees them on TV someday." Tyrone ignored them all. But behind closed doors, he broke. Some nights, he would stare at the ceiling and whisper, "Why'd you leave me to do this alone, Alyssa? Was I not enough? Were they not enough?" He would get no answer, only the soft breathing of his daughters asleep beside him, their tiny hands always reaching for him in the dark. One night, while rocking Kennedy, who had a fever, Tyrone told her a story. "Your mama gave you life, but I'll give you the world. One day, you'll be somebody. And no one will remember the girl who ran. They'll remember the dad who stayed." He didn't know how or when, but in his soul he believed it. And so began the story, not of tragedy, but of unwavering love. Of a man who refused to let abandonment define his daughter's beginning. Of two girls who would grow up not in the shadow of who left, but in the light of the one who stayed. And one day the world would remember their names. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye, and in those 2 years, Tyrone Miller transformed into something few expected, a father worth admiring. Savannah knew his story. Some pitied him. Others watched with quiet respect. But no one doubted one thing. Tyrone didn't just step up. He carried the whole damn mountain. Each morning began before dawn. Tyrone would bundle Kennedy and Kendra in thrifted onesies, strap them into a twin stroller, and walk 5 blocks to drop them at Miss Della's house, a widow in her 60s who offered affordable childcare. Then he'd head to whatever job he could get for the day. Roofing, unloading delivery trucks, fixing fences, even painting numbers on curbs. He did it without complaint. Without help, without ever hearing from Alyssa again. At night, he'd walk home in the fading light, sweat-streaked and sore, carrying one twin, while the other napped in the stroller, his lunchbox swinging at his side like a forgotten dream. He'd prepare simple dinners, beans and rice, peanut butter sandwiches, boxed mac and cheese, and feed the girls with a quiet, focused tenderness that made even Miss Della's heart ache. "You were never meant to be doing this alone, baby," she told him one day as he picked the girls up. "But you're doing it better than most couples I know." Tyrone smiled, but didn't respond. Words had grown scarce in his world. Survival didn't allow much time for self-reflection. One Friday evening, while folding laundry, his mother Gloria shuffled into the room with a letter in hand. "Baby, this came in the mail for you, from a law firm." Tyrone glanced up, his brow furrowing. "A law firm?" He wiped his hands on his jeans, took the envelope, and opened it carefully. The logo read, Raymond Cole, LLP. His heart stuttered. That was Alyssa's father's firm. The letter was brief, cold, and sterile. Dear Mr. Miller, it has come to our attention that Ms. Alyssa Raymond has recently given legal guardianship of the minor children Kennedy and Kendra Miller to you, relinquishing all parental rights. Effective immediately, she will have no further involvement, financial or otherwise, in the care of said minors. This decision is final and binding. Sincerely, David Raymond Escrew. Tyrone's hand trembled as he read the last line. Not a single sentence expressed remorse, no question about their well-being, no goodbye. Just a severance. Miss Gloria sat down beside him and rubbed his back. She ain't coming back, she whispered. She already left, Tyrone said flatly. This just makes it official. Later that night, after the twins had fallen asleep, Kennedy curled up beside the window, Kendra snuggled against his chest. Tyrone stared at the ceiling for hours. His thoughts tangled between rage and numbness. He couldn't stop seeing Alyssa's face, the way she used to laugh, full of life, the warmth in her eyes. Had that been real, or just something he needed to believe in? He whispered. Why'd you run, Alyssa? Why them? They didn't ask for this. The following Sunday brought an unexpected visitor. Tyrone was in the backyard hanging diapers on a line when he heard a familiar voice. Tyrone? He turned around slowly. There she stood, Alyssa, wearing designer shades and a beige trench coat. Her appearance screamed money, but her face, bare of makeup, looked older than he remembered. Tired, detached. You can't just show up, Tyrone said, his voice low. Not now. Not after that letter. I came to say goodbye. Properly, she said, arms crossed tightly like a shield. You already said it with a lawyer. Her lips trembled. I didn't know what else to do. My parents, they gave me no choice. It was either walk away or lose everything. Tyrone stared at her like she was a stranger. They're two. They still call out for you in their sleep, she flinched. Do they remember me? I didn't let them forget. But I won't lie to them either. A moment of silence passed. Then she pulled a folded check from her bag. This is for them. Tyrone didn't even look at it. They don't need your money. They need a mother. I can't be that person, Alyssa admitted, her voice cracking. I thought I could. I tried. But every time I see them, I feel like I'm drowning. Tyrone's fists clenched. You don't get to drown. You left me in the deep end with 2 babies and no life vest. She lowered her head. I'm sorry, she whispered. You don't get to walk away from this scene like a sad movie character. This ain't Netflix. These are real babies. Real lives. She finally looked him in the eye. There were tears. Regret, maybe even guilt. But it was too late. Goodbye, Tyrone. She turned and walked away. This time he didn't stop her. That night, Tyrone pulled the twins close, brushing Kennedy's curls and kissing Kendra's forehead. He didn't need a partner anymore. He was the family now. And in that moment, something shifted inside him. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was preparing. One day, the world would hear the names Kennedy and Kendra Miller, and they would know. It all started with a man who refused to quit. The man who stayed. Years rolled forward like waves, and with them, the twin girls grew, bold, bright, and boundlessly curious. By the time Kennedy and Kendra turned 10, the small neighborhood of Westview in Houston, Texas, knew them by name. Not just because they were cute, but because they were unmistakably fierce, raised with grit by a father who poured everything he had into them. Kennedy had the calm edge of a storm just before it broke, watchful, poised, with eyes that always seemed to notice too much. Kendra, on the other hand, was fire, quick with words, always ready to stand her ground, her laughter infectious and her opinions unfiltered. Tyrone, now in his 30s, had finally secured stable work at a manufacturing plant. It didn't pay much, but it came with insurance and a routine, two luxuries he never took for granted. Still, money was tight. The bills never stopped. Rent, groceries, school supplies, shoes the girls kept outgrowing. There was never enough. One chilly December morning, Kennedy brought home a crumpled letter from school. It was an invite to the annual Family Night Showcase. Each student would present a creative project about their family. Parents were expected to attend. Kendra tossed her backpack on the couch and muttered, "So we just write about you, right?" "Yeah," Kennedy added, sitting beside her dad at the dinner table. "But we were thinking maybe we could include pictures of Mommy too." Tyrone stiffened. "Pictures?" he asked, trying to keep his tone neutral. "Yeah, I know you've got that old photo album in the closet," Kennedy replied gently. "I just want to show our whole story. The good and the bad." Kendra scoffed. "I don't care what she looks like. She ghosted us, remember?" "Girls," Tyrone said, his voice calm but firm. "We'll talk about it after dinner, okay?" The truth was, he had kept that photo album locked away for years. He wasn't sure why. Maybe part of him hoped one day the girls wouldn't need it, that they'd forget the empty space she left behind. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, Tyrone sat alone in the living room. He opened the album. Time had yellowed the pages. There was a photo of Alyssa cradling the girls in the hospital, her smile wide, almost blinding. Another one showed Tyrone at 22, bleary-eyed and hopeful, holding both girls in his lap at once. He closed the book. He hadn't heard from Alyssa in 8 years. Not a call, not a letter, not even a birthday card. And yet her absence filled the house more than any presence ever had. The day of the school showcase came quickly. Tyrone had taken the day off. He wore his best shirt, still a little wrinkled but clean, and helped the girls pack their trifold display board, decorated with glitter and cut-out photos of their life growing up. When they got to school, the gymnasium was buzzing. Parents clustered together taking photos, offering snacks, cheering their kids on. Kennedy and Kendra set up their board near the back corner. Tyrone stood beside them, trying not to look too out of place among the more polished, wealthier parents. A group of mothers nearby whispered, clearly unaware that Tyrone could hear. "Are those the Miller twins?" "Yeah, raised by their dad alone, right? Their mom ran off, if I'm not mistaken. Such a shame." "He looks rough around the edges." Tyrone didn't flinch. But Kennedy heard, and Kendra definitely heard. "Y'all got something to say?" Kendra snapped, stepping forward. "Kendra," Tyrone warned under his breath, but the mothers smiled tightly and turned away, embarrassed. Kennedy reached for her father's hand. "It doesn't matter," she said quietly. "They'll see." And they did. When it was the twins' turn, the entire gym fell into a hush. Kennedy spoke first, her voice clear and steady. "Our family isn't traditional." "But it's powerful." Kendra stepped up, pointing to a timeline of photos. "Our mom left when we were babies. Our dad didn't." "He stayed. He worked 3 jobs just to buy formula. He missed meals so we could eat." They continued, taking turns, sharing stories of Tyrone stitching their Halloween costumes by hand, staying up to help with science fair volcanoes, learning to braid hair from YouTube videos. "He was our dad and our mom," Kennedy finished. Tears shimmered in the crowd. Teachers clapped. Even the whispering mothers now wore soft, apologetic expressions. When they returned to their table, Tyrone pulled them both into a hug. "You made me proud up there." Kendra sniffled. "We just told the truth." That night, Something happened that no one expected. Tyrone's phone rang. Unknown number. He stared at it for a second before answering. Hello? Tyrone? The voice was faint, feminine. His throat went dry. Alyssa? There was silence. Then she spoke.
I heard about the girls, about the showcase. Someone sent me a video.
His heart thudded. What do you want, Alyssa? I want to see them. No. Tyrone, please. No, he repeated. You don't get to walk in now, not after everything.
I'm sick,
she said, her voice cracking.
I don't have much time left. I just want a chance to apologize, to say goodbye.
He didn't respond. She whispered,
Please, let me see them once.
He stared at the ceiling, torn between rage and mercy. I'll think about it, he said finally, then hung up. He sat in silence for a long time. Outside the twins' room, he heard them laughing. He realized then, he wasn't the same young man she had left behind. And his daughters, they were no longer little girls seeking approval. They were becoming legends in their own right, and nothing, not even the past, could change that. By the time Kennedy and Kendra were 17, they had already grown into remarkable young women. Their bond was unshakable, their intelligence striking, and their resilience unmatched. They had developed an unspoken rhythm, often finishing each other's thoughts, always aware of each other's presence, even in a crowd. Teachers at Westview High called them the Miller Storm, not just because they were gifted, but because they never let the world forget who raised them, or how hard they had worked to be where they were. Tyrone, now in his 40s, still worked long hours at the distribution center, but he had recently taken up weekend college classes, secretly. He never mentioned it to the girls. He wanted to be more than just a provider. He wanted to show them it was never too late to grow. He studied business management in the evenings, in hopes that maybe one day he could open a small shop, something of his own. Meanwhile, Kennedy had become obsessed with coding and cybersecurity, teaching herself through free online courses. Kendra, ever the wordsmith, was already being scouted for national youth journalism programs. Their talents weren't just impressive, they were beginning to attract attention. One afternoon, Kennedy came rushing into the kitchen, laptop in hand, eyes wide.
Dad,
she said breathlessly,
do you know what a tech incubator is?
Tyrone blinked, glancing up from his reading glasses and budget papers. Sounds like something you'd find in a lab. She laughed, but it was brief. It's a program that helps people with tech ideas build real businesses. I submitted one of my projects, a cybersecurity app I've been working on.
And I got accepted. They want me to pitch it in New York.
Kendra burst through the door right after.
And guess what?
I got an invite too. An online publication wants me to write a featured article about minority youth leaders across the country. And they want a photo series. Kennedy's going to shoot it.
Tyrone stood slowly, caught between pride and disbelief. Wait, both of you? In New York? They nodded, eyes gleaming. But who's going to fund this trip? He asked, already doing the math in his head.
Kennedy handed him a printed email. They are. Full scholarship.
Flights, hotel, meals, everything. Tyrone read it once, then again. His eyes welled with tears, but he blinked them back.
I told y'all,
he whispered, voice cracking.
I told y'all you were meant for more.
Their trip to New York was like something out of a movie. Kennedy pitched her app in front of a room full of investors. Kendra's article went viral just days after it was published, and her photo spread was picked up by a major media platform. The girls returned to Houston to a flood of press requests, school assemblies, and even local news interviews. But the attention brought something else too. A letter, Addressed in unfamiliar cursive, it arrived one grey morning in a white envelope with no return address. Kennedy opened it. As her eyes scanned the page, her face changed. "It's from her," she said quietly. Kendra frowned. "Who?" "Her. Alyssa. Our birth mum." Tyrone turned sharply from the kitchen sink, a dish still in his hand. "She wrote?" Kennedy nodded slowly and read aloud. "I know I have no right to ask anything. I only want to say I'm sorry. I saw your pictures, read your stories. I can't explain why I left the way I did, but I never stopped thinking about you. I'm dying. Cancer. I just want to meet you, once, if you'll let me. I'll be at Liberty Park this Saturday at noon. If you come, I'll know you've forgiven me. If not, I'll understand." Silence blanketed the room. Kendra rolled her eyes and scoffed. "Are you kidding me? She disappears for 17 years and now she's dying. And we're supposed to show up like everything's fine?" Kennedy sat down, letter shaking in her hands. "I don't know what to feel. It's a lot." Tyrone wiped his hands and walked over. "Girls, listen, you don't owe her anything. She made her choice. But this moment, it's about you. What kind of people you want to be." Kennedy looked up. "What would you do?" "I'd go," Tyrone admitted. "Not for her, for myself. So I could sleep at night knowing I faced the past and didn't let it define me." Kendra crossed her arms. "So that's it? We just show up and give her closure? After she gave us nothing?" Tyrone placed a hand on her shoulder. "Closure ain't for her. It's for you." Saturday came. They didn't say much in the car ride over. The park was mostly quiet, save for a few joggers and kids on the swings. Under the old oak tree by the pond, a woman sat on a bench, frail, wrapped in a wool coat despite the sun. It was her. "Alyssa." She looked up when they approached, her eyes already wet. "I didn't think you'd come," she whispered. Kennedy stood still, arms at her sides. Kendra stood a pace behind, jaw clenched. "You left," Kennedy said quietly. "Do you even know what that did to us?" Alyssa nodded slowly. "I've thought about it every day. I don't expect forgiveness. But I hoped you'd let me say I'm sorry. I was young, scared, and stupid." Kendra stepped forward, voice sharp. "We cried for you. On Mother's Day, at school, at night. We begged for someone who never came." Tears streamed down Alyssa's face. I know. And it kills me." Kennedy looked at her for a long time. Then slowly she reached into her tote bag and pulled out a photo. It was from the school showcase. The board, the pictures, their story. "This is who we are," Kennedy said, handing it to her. "This is what Dad made us. You weren't there." "But he was." Alyssa stared at the photo and broke down sobbing. "I'm proud of you," she whispered, "even if I had no part in it." Kennedy gave a tight nod. Kendra didn't speak again. They stood for a moment longer, then turned and walked away. They didn't look back. That night, Tyrone waited quietly at the kitchen table, nervously glancing at the clock. The girls returned home, placed their bags down, and sat. She looked broken, Kennedy said softly. Kendra added, "But we're not. That's the difference." Tyrone nodded. "You girls are whole," he said. "And no one can take that away from you." Later that week, Alyssa passed. No funeral, no headlines. But that wasn't the end, because that same week, Kennedy and Kendra launched something new, something that would shake the world. A month after their silent goodbye to Alyssa, Kennedy and Kendra sat in their shared office inside a co-working space in downtown Austin. Their idea had taken root fast.
The same energy that once drove their school projects and New York success now fueled something much bigger. Unity Legacy, a tech and advocacy startup aimed at helping kids in foster care and single-parent homes access education, mentorship, and basic resources. What started as an app Kennedy had developed for school, initially called Guiding Star, had evolved. Now it was a full-blown platform powered by AI and peer-to-peer systems that matched mentors with students from underserved communities. Kendra's role: making sure the stories of these kids were heard. She built the content, the voice, the impact. One afternoon, a soft knock echoed through the glass-paneled office. Tyrone peeked his head in, holding a brown takeout bag. "Lunch break, CEOs?" he grinned. Kendra chuckled, spinning in her chair. "You always bring the best food. Is that the Jamaican place again?" "You know it." He smiled proudly. "Curried goat and plantains." "Don't say I never spoiled y'all." As they sat on the floor with containers open and laughter filling the room, the doorbell of their digital life rang. An email pinged on Kennedy's laptop. She glanced at the subject line and froze. Kendra noticed instantly. "What's wrong?" Kennedy turned the screen. "It's from the Walton Foundation." Tyrone blinked. "The Waltons?" "As in billion-dollar philanthropy Waltons?" Kennedy clicked open the email, her hands trembling. She skimmed it, and her jaw dropped. "They want to invest $2 million, she whispered. "Seed round funding. They're calling our platform revolutionary." Kendra nearly dropped her fork. $2 million? No strings attached, Kennedy said. "They just want us to scale, more cities, more reach, and they want us to speak at their summit in DC. Tyrone sat back slowly. "Girls, you're about to change the game." That same night, as if fate were weaving stories into their lives, Kennedy received another message. This one was from a woman named Samantha Green, a well-known journalist from a national network. "I've been following your journey," the message read, "but I recently came across a personal detail in the background of a story I was researching. I believe we may have a connection, a mutual person in our past. I'd love to speak, off the record if needed." Kennedy blinked at the message. Who the heck is Samantha Green? Kendra, ever the curious one, Googled the name. The screen filled with polished headshots, press articles, and clips of the anchor delivering powerful news segments on social issues. "She's huge," Kendra said. "And wait, she's adopted." "Says so right here in this profile." That detail lingered in Kennedy's mind all night. The next day, against Tyrone's cautious suggestion, the twins agreed to meet Samantha in a neutral cafe in Austin. When she walked in, she looked younger than they expected. Mid-30s, tall, poised, with tightly curled hair and brown eyes that felt familiar. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice low but steady. "We don't usually take unannounced meetings," Kendra said firmly. Samantha nodded. "I understand, but I think I might be your half-sister." The room fell completely silent. "What?" Kennedy asked, voice shaking. "I was adopted from Houston General Hospital in 1988. I've spent years trying to trace my biological family. Recently, I tracked down an old hospital record. Your mother's name was listed as mine too, Alyssa. Same handwriting, same date of birth, different fathers." Kendra sat back, stunned. "You're saying she had you before us?" Samantha nodded. "And gave me up at birth?" Kennedy covered her mouth. "We had a sister, and she never told us." "I'm not here for pity," Samantha added. "But when I saw your names connected to her in a social media post memorializing her, I started digging, and everything lined up." They sat there for over 2 hours, connecting timelines, sharing memories they never had together. It was bizarre, surreal,
but oddly comforting.
Tyrone took the news better than expected.
"Life's funny," he said that evening, sitting on their porch with a beer in hand.
Some people run from their family, and some people spend their whole lives trying to find them. The girls invited Samantha over the next weekend. She brought baby photos, adoption records, and the framed picture of the nurse who had held her hand as an infant. They all sat around the dining table like a family that had always been there, only missing the years that pain had stolen.
Later that night, Kennedy leaned on Kendra's shoulder. "Crazy how something so broken can become beautiful," she murmured. "Yeah," Kendra replied.
"Maybe we were never abandoned. Maybe we were just rerouted." Back at the Unity Legacy office, the sisters drafted their new proposal, Legacy Ties, a branch of their platform that would help people reconnect with lost family through a secure, AI-driven search tool partnered with DNA banks and hospital archives. When they presented it at the Walton Summit in DC, they brought Samantha on stage with them.
Kendra opened the talk with words that rippled through the audience. "Some families are born, others are built, and sometimes they're found in the ruins." By the time they stepped off the stage, the crowd was on their feet, applauding not just the tech, but the heart, the journey, and the fight that refused to give up. What they didn't know, their biggest test was still coming. A new name would soon resurface. And this time, the world would be watching. The night after the Walton Summit, Kennedy found herself sitting in a quiet hotel lounge, staring into a glass of sparkling water. The applause, the congratulations, the flashbulbs. It had all passed in a blur. But now, in the silence, she felt something else creeping in. Unease. Across from her, Kendra scrolled through her phone, her brows furrowing. "You're quiet," Kennedy finally said. Kendra didn't look up. "I think someone's digging." Kennedy sat straighter. "What do you mean?" "I mean there are 3 anonymous articles online already speculating about our childhood, and one comment thread on Reddit claims to know about Alyssa." Kennedy's face stiffened. "We never used her name publicly." "I know. But someone must have pieced it together from old records. And it's not just one troll. It's organized. Coordinated." Tyrone joined them moments later, holding his laptop. "I think she's right. A freelance blogger who's notorious for scandal chasing just posted a thread. It ends with a question. Why did the mother of America's rising black billionaire twins give them up? And where is she now?" Kennedy's chest tightened. "We buried that story." "You buried it emotionally," Kendra said, "but not legally." "Not digitally. Not enough." They spent the next 3 hours devising a response strategy. But before they could roll anything out, the story exploded. By morning, the twins' origin was trending. Commentators speculated whether Alyssa had been abusive. Others accused the girls of manipulating their backstory for sympathy and funding. But one article, from a tabloid site known for stalking the families of celebrities, crossed a line. It posted a grainy photo of Alyssa, alive, present day, leaning against a storefront in a small Texas town. Kennedy's voice cracked when she saw it. "That's her." "That's her today." Kendra's mouth went dry. "She's been living just 2 hours away. All this time?" Tyrone broke the silence. "You have 2 options. Ignore it, or face her." Neither sister said a word. That evening they didn't speak much during the drive. The dusty road to the town of Bexley wound between sleepy farms and weathered fences. When they finally pulled up to the shop, a rundown thrift store called Second Chances, Kennedy cut the engine. The air was heavy. "She doesn't deserve our time," Kendra said softly. gripping the door handle. "But we deserve answers," Kennedy replied. Inside, the bell above the door rang as they stepped in. A woman behind the counter, thinner now, older, her curls grey and loosely pinned, looked up. For a moment, she didn't recognize them. Then her face froze. "You're—" "Yes," Kennedy said, her voice trembling. "We're your daughters." The room fell silent. Alyssa slowly walked around the counter. I saw the articles, the videos. I didn't think you'd ever come." Kendra's arms stayed crossed. "You didn't think we'd ever come because you never came back." Alyssa looked down. "You're right." Kennedy stepped forward. "Why? Why did you leave us? We were babies." Alyssa's eyes welled up. "Because I was broken." "I was 19, scared and abandoned by my own mother when I had you. Your father disappeared, and I couldn't face raising two babies with nothing. I thought if I left, maybe someone stronger would take care of you." "Someone did," Kendra said coldly. "His name was Carl. He raised us. He suffered. He sacrificed. He bled for us." Alyssa's voice cracked. "I've lived with that guilt every day." "So why hide?" Kennedy demanded. "Because I thought, if you were thriving without me, I didn't deserve to interfere. I watched everything from afar. When you became famous, I panicked. I didn't want the world to know the truth about me." "You didn't think we deserved the truth?" Kendra asked, her voice rising. "Or was it that you didn't want your image tarnished?" Alyssa didn't answer. Then Kennedy pulled something from her bag. A letter. "I wrote this when I was 15, she said, handing it to her mother. "It was for a school assignment. Write a letter to someone who left. I never mailed it, but here, read it. Because you should know what it cost us." Alyssa unfolded the paper. Her hands trembled as she read. Her lips quivered halfway through. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Kennedy took a deep breath. "We didn't come for an apology. We came for closure." Alyssa looked up, her eyes desperate. "I want to make things right." "You can't," Kendra replied quietly. "You can't undo absence. You can't rewrite history. But we don't hate you. We just don't need you anymore." The sisters turned to leave, but Kennedy paused at the door. "We're not the girls you left behind. We built a life, and we found family in those who stayed." Outside, the evening air was crisp. Back in the car, neither said anything for miles. Then Kendra spoke. "That was harder than I thought." "But we needed it," Kennedy replied. As they returned to Austin, something inside them both had shifted. No more running from the past. No more questions without answers. Now they had clarity. And clarity was power. A week had passed since Kennedy and Kendra confronted Alyssa in that small thrift store. And although they walked away with clarity, the emotional toll was undeniable. The media was still buzzing. Some praised the twins for facing their past with grace, while others probed deeper, trying to spin the story into scandal. But Kennedy had no time for gossip. She had a new mission in mind, one far more personal and urgent. Their foundation, Rise Beyond, was in its final stages of launching a groundbreaking initiative, one focused on building a network of transitional homes for single fathers, a silent demographic often overlooked. The first center would be named after their adoptive father, Carl House. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came when Kennedy received an anonymous envelope delivered directly to her office at the downtown Austin Tower bearing their company name. Inside it was a copy of a hospital birth certificate, Kendra's and hers, and the father's name. Mark L. Williams, a name she had never seen before. She called Tyrone into her office immediately. "Run this name, now," she said, shoving the document across the desk. Tyrone glanced at it, confused. Isn't your father's name Carl McBride? Carl raised us, but he never claimed to be our biological father, Kennedy answered, her voice low and steady. Tyrone nodded, opening his laptop. A few keystrokes later, his brow arched. There's a Mark L. Williams in Dallas, former pastor, lost his license due to fraud. There's also a sealed paternity case under his name filed in 1999. Kennedy's stomach dropped. Get me everything. Discreetly. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. The sealed file had to be pulled via legal counsel. What they found sent shockwaves through the room. Mark Williams wasn't just their biological father. He had fought for custody when they were babies. The court had denied his petition after Alyssa submitted statements claiming he was unstable, broke, and unfit. There were discrepancies in her testimony, including an affidavit where she claimed she had no family support, despite being employed at the time and living in her parents' home. The judge had ruled in her favor, but she disappeared shortly after the hearing, leaving both Mark and the twins behind. Kendra sat beside Kennedy at the boardroom table, rereading the documents. So, she ran from him too? Kendra said, voice shaking. Kennedy nodded slowly. And from us. She cut everyone off, lied to everyone. For what? She said she felt trapped. But this is something else. That evening, against Kendra's protest, Kennedy drove to Dallas alone. She found the address listed on the old file. It led her to a modest house in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. When the door opened, the man who stood before her looked like a mirror of her own face, just older, weathered. Grey lined his temples, and there was a quietness in his eyes that only years of heartbreak could teach. Yes? He asked, cautious. Mr. Williams, I think I'm your daughter. His eyes widened, and for a moment he looked like the breath had been knocked from his chest. His hand went to the doorframe, steadying himself. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. I brought proof, Kennedy said, holding up the documents. He ushered her inside with a trembling hand. As they sat across from each other in his dimly lit living room, Kennedy told him everything. How they had grown up, what Alyssa had done, how Carl raised them, how they built their lives. When she finished, Mark covered his mouth and turned away, fighting back tears. I prayed for you every birthday, he said quietly. Every time I saw twins, I wondered if it could be you. I thought, maybe God had taken you both from me as punishment. Kennedy looked at him and felt something unexpected. Not anger, not even grief. Just a strange, deep ache for all the time lost. I don't know what comes next, she said softly. But I think we deserve to know each other. At least a little. I would be honored, he replied. Back in Austin, Kendra was pacing when Kennedy returned. How was he? She asked, before her sister even closed the door. He's decent, Kennedy answered. He's not perfect. But he didn't walk away. Kendra exhaled, sitting down slowly. This is too much. I know, Kennedy replied, pulling a folded photograph from her jacket. But I think we've been strong long enough to carry it. The next few weeks, the twins balanced preparing for their largest Rise Beyond gala, yet with quietly reconnecting with Mark. They didn't announce it. They didn't post photos. It was theirs. Then came the gala. Held at the Four Seasons Ballroom, the event welcomed hundreds, philanthropists, politicians, celebrities, and those who had benefited from their programs. But there was one face that wasn't on the guest list who still managed to appear. Alyssa. She stood at the back of the room, dressed in a muted navy dress, her expression unreadable. Kendra saw her first and nudged Kennedy. What do we do? Kendra whispered. Let her watch, Kennedy said, her gaze unwavering.
Let her see what she walked away from. Later, during Kennedy's speech, she paused after thanking their team and partners.
"There's someone we've never honored publicly before," she said, her voice steady.
Someone who shaped us not by presence but by absence, who left a void we had to fill ourselves, and in doing so, made us who we are. The room held its breath.
"I used to think abandonment was a wound, but now I know it was the space where purpose grew."
She didn't mention Alyssa by name. She didn't have to. The crowd erupted in applause. From the back of the room, Alyssa turned and quietly exited. Outside, under the stars, she paused, clutching her purse tightly. A single tear slipped down her cheek, but no one saw. Inside, surrounded by love, strength, and their chosen family, the twins stood tall. What they had built could never be broken. The gala was a defining moment, not just for Rise Beyond, but for Kennedy and Kendra. After years of pain, silence, and unanswered questions, they had taken control of their own narrative. No more shadows, no more ghosts. But even after the applause faded and the ballroom emptied, something lingered, something unfinished. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived at their office, handwritten on crisp ivory paper. The envelope was unmarked, no return address. Inside was a note. "I don't expect forgiveness. I only wanted to see what you had become. And now I know. You've become more than I ever imagined."
"I'm proud, even if I have no right to be."
Kendra read the note aloud, setting it down on the table afterward.
"That's it?"
she asked, brows furrowed.
Kennedy sighed, folding her arms. "It's more than we ever got before."
She still ran.
She did, but we didn't.
Later that night, the twins visited their father's grave. Carl McBride had passed away 5 years ago from cancer, and though he never sought recognition, his role in their lives had been pivotal. Kennedy knelt and placed a fresh bouquet of tulips, his favorite, on the headstone.
"We did it, Dad,"
she whispered.
"You said we would rise. You were right."
Kendra stepped beside her, placing a folded photo under the flowers, a picture of the two of them in front of the newly finished Carl house, smiling with kids they were now helping.
"He would have loved this,"
she said. That night, as they drove home, they passed a shelter downtown. Outside stood a young black girl, no older than 15, holding a plastic bag and a baby in her arms. She looked tired, scared, and very alone. And Kennedy pulled over immediately. "I'll go," she said. As she approached, the girl stiffened.
"I'm not doing anything," she said defensively. "I'm just trying to find a place to stay."
Kennedy softened her voice.
"You don't have to explain."
"I've been there. Not exactly, but I know what it feels like." The girl looked at her, cautious.
"You don't know me?"
"No, I don't," Kennedy said. "But I know what it's like to be left behind. And I know what it's like when someone finally chooses to stay." After a quiet pause, the girl whispered,
"I just need a place for the night."
"We have more than that," Kennedy said with a smile. "We've got a whole house waiting for you." She opened the car door, helped the girl inside, and they drove straight to Carl House. When they arrived, Kendra was already inside setting up a room. Blankets, fresh clothes, a bottle for the baby. That night, Kennedy sat with the girl in the common room. "What's your name?" she asked. "Zaria," the girl replied, voice small. "Zaria," Kennedy repeated. "You're safe now." Zaria looked at her, then at the baby. "Are you like a social worker or something?" Kennedy smiled.
"No. I'm just someone who got left behind once, and now I build spaces for people like us."
Zaria nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes.
"I didn't think anyone would care."
"We do," Kendra said, stepping in.
We always will. 6 months passed. The Rise Beyond network had grown faster than anyone expected. What started as one transitional home in Austin was now a national movement. Kennedy handled strategic planning, while Kendra focused on community engagement and impact programs. Together, they'd been invited to speak at the UN Women's Summit and received the Presidential Humanitarian Medal. But none of those honors meant as much to them as Zaria's high school graduation. Zaria, once homeless, now stood in a navy blue gown, her baby on her hip, addressing her class as valedictorian. "My future was once a parking lot at midnight," she said from the stage. "Now it's limitless." Because someone saw me not as a burden, but as a beginning. Tears rolled freely down Kennedy's and Kendra's cheeks. In the audience, seated a few rows back, was a woman in sunglasses and a plain beige coat. Alyssa. She didn't make herself known. She didn't need to. She just watched, clutching the letter the twins had never sent, and whispered to herself, "They did what I never could." After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed, Kennedy and Kendra helped Zaria with her baby. Kendra whispered, "She's so proud of you." Zaria nodded. "I couldn't have done it without you both." Kennedy touched her arm. "Someday, you'll do the same for someone else." That night, they returned to their condo overlooking the Austin skyline. Champagne sat untouched on the counter. They stood at the window in silence, taking in the city lights, the hum of possibility. "We could stop," Kendra said. "We've done more than we dreamed." Kennedy shook her head gently. "No, we're just getting started." Their story had begun with pain, but it didn't end there. They'd turned scars into symbols, brokenness into blueprints. And now, as billionaires not defined by wealth, but by impact, they had rewritten the meaning of legacy. They weren't the ones abandoned. They were the ones who stayed. If this story moved you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us share more powerful stories like this, stories of resilience, redemption, and real love. Thank you for being part of this journey.